Hi there, and welcome to this other half of my analysis of Arcane's Caitlyn Kiriman, specifically focused on why Caitlyn falls for Vi, someone so different from her in many ways. This video draws on some of the conclusions I make in my full characterization of Caitlyn before she meets Vi. If you want to check that out before watching this, click here and then come back here after. This video can also be seen as the sequel to my video about why Vi falls for Caitlyn. If you've seen that, you know that I'm deeply moved and intrigued by the way their journey has been portrayed. I want to expand on Caitlyn's point of view. She is my favourite character, and there are so many levels to her that I feel have been overlooked a little, even by me. And even by the massive fan base this couple has out there. And because of that massive fan base, I just want to say in advance that I interpret based on what I see and analyse in the show itself. I don't draw on information from the game or tweets from the show's writers. Before digging into what it is that makes Caitlyn fall in love with Vi, I'd like to delve into why Caitlyn is going to the prison in the first place, because it helps to explain why Caitlyn strikes up with Vi. What is it that makes her take that huge leap of faith and let her out of prison? It is, in my opinion, definitely not because she immediately feels an attraction to Vi, and it is certainly not Vi's sunny personality that convinces her. I see no evidence of this to begin with. Caitlyn is a privileged woman. Growing up in a rich and influential family, she has had a safe childhood and has been able to decide for herself what profession she wants to have. She's good at what she does, but she feels that she could do more, and she wants to do more. Her parents and her boss are confining her, and when she loses her job and even Jace tries to take her agency away from her, she strikes out on her own. Although Caitlyn and Jace are really close, it doesn't seem like he really buys her suspicions and theories about the undercity. We see him have a doubtful expression on his face while she talks to him about it, almost a worry that she has lost her marbles with this obsession. So he indulges her and listens, but he doesn't take her seriously. And in the end, he patronizes her and treats her like an entitled person, just like everybody else does. And she hates it. All in all, she doesn't feel like she belongs with the people of Piltover, or at least with its ruling elite, so it's not hard for her to leave without explaining or saying goodbye. Being frustrated with her place in the world also means that Caitlyn is open to finding something else, or someone else, to fight for and believe in. She's driven by the need to solve the mystery of the Great Conspiracy, which she herself has been caught up in by almost being blown up by a mysterious, monkey-drawing, gem-stealing, blue-haired girl. She probably feels like this is her last chance to make a difference, to prove her theories right, so she's putting all her eggs into this last basket when she goes to Stillwater Hold. We see the worry, impatience, and nervous energy in the tapping of her thumb as she's on her way down to Vi, something she does when she's about to tackle a problem head-on. She was supposed to talk to the burly tattooed man, whom she thinks has at least some of the answers she seeks, and is willing to talk, but she hasn't been able to gain access to him. If this next and smaller lead doesn't pan out, what will she do then? As the elevator doors open, we see the determination on her face. This has to work. So when she meets Vi, she's desperate for answers, desperate to find something that will help her, which goes a long way to explain why she takes the risk of releasing Vi. But Caitlyn is still very skeptical as to the usefulness of what Vi has to say, so something more must figure into why Caitlyn lets her out. I think it is something inherent in Caitlyn that shadows her need to prove herself, solve crime puzzles, and finding the truth. Her desire to help and do good. This particular aspect in Caitlyn is not something we've seen much of up until episode 5, except perhaps when she helps out Jace and in how she handles the tattooed man. But I don't think it is because this compassionate side wasn't there before. When Cassandra surprises Vi and Caitlyn in her bedroom in episode 8, she says,
"And you found a stray."
And I've thought a lot about what that means. For her mother to say it like that most likely means that it has happened before, that perhaps it was a common thing that Caitlyn used to do. A stray most often means a loose animal in distress, or a person who is lost and needs help in some way. So my guess is that Caitlyn, while growing up, brought either stray animals or people in need back to their house in order to help them, all out of the goodness of her heart. Caitlyn was in a position to help because of her privileged background and wanted to make a difference for someone even though her mother didn't approve, and still doesn't. Caitlyn is self-effacing and altruistic to the bone, and this gene in her becomes much more evident as she finally makes her way to the undercity, where obviously there are more people in need than in Piltover. So I think this is partly what motivates Caitlyn in letting out Vi. She sees a person in need of help, someone being beaten up regularly, someone who's imprisoned indefinitely, even though her record doesn't mention a crime committed. But I still think the main reason why she lets her out is because Caitlyn needs answers. She needs something worthwhile to spend her time on, especially now that Marcus and her mother have pulled the rug on her enforcer career. So far, all the evidence points to Caitlyn being a driven, hardworking person, all about seeking out purpose and truth, with basically no time to spare for family or relationships. Even when she's with Jace, she talks about work and principles. She doesn't just hang out or have fun. They do have fun together, but Jace is the one who initiates it. So when Jace offers her a job, she's not repulsed by working for him, but by the fact that it would be a ceremonial position, one with status but no real work. A job where she would sit on her ass and be a pencil pusher instead of working actively, practically, and physically. Politics are not for her, she needs to get her hands dirty. If only people would let her get her hands dirty. And what better way to get her hands dirty than going to the undercity in the company of a criminal? Or at the very least, a dodgy and threatening sort of person who claims to be able to get the answers she needs. And by releasing Vi, Caitlyn definitely has her hands full. Vi takes control most of the time in the beginning and constantly needles her, much to Caitlyn's frustration. Though Caitlyn is an active, strong woman and has the stamina to follow Vi in her parkouring descent into the undercity, she's totally out of her element. Caitlyn likes calculated risk, not these daring leaps of faith into the air. But she follows anyway, especially now that she has already made a leap of faith by releasing Vi. She has to see it through to the end, just a little more slowly. How Vi and the undercity work is a complete mystery to Caitlyn, and she is surprised at every turn by Vi's craftiness, directness, and methods. The way Vi acts and talks rubs Caitlyn the wrong way, and the usually so calm and controlled woman increasingly loses her cool. We see her lose her temper at the food stand, and when they get to the brothel, she gets embarrassed, outraged, and flustered in a very short span of time. We've seen how Jace earlier tried to take Caitlyn in his arms, but she shoved him away. So if she really wanted to push Vi away, she could and would. But her mindset is off kilter at the point when Vi makes her iconic move, pushing Caitlyn against the wall. She really did not see this move from Vi coming at all. I think a lot of things are going through her head here. For one thing, she's surprised by Vi's words because I don't think Caitlyn thinks of herself in terms of looks and beauty. During the whole show, she's either in uniform or dressed by what Vi has given her. The only time she's actually dressed herself is when she's injured, and that outfit seems more like comfy clothes or pajamas. She thinks about work, not dating, dressing up, or primping. Granted, there's a purple suit hanging in her bedroom, but she doesn't give it any attention at all, since it's probably meant for fine cocktail parties. Secondly, I think Caitlyn is overwhelmed by the sheer bulk and physical presence of Vi, as well as the patronizing nickname that she throws in her face, which makes it hard to think about anything, much less whether she prefers men or women. And thirdly, I'm not even sure Caitlyn has picked a gender to be interested in. So far, there's been no indication whatsoever of any romantic interest on her part, and her sexuality could be anything based on her looks and behavior. In my opinion, she seems more intuitive than experienced in her interactions with Vi later on. I'm not even sure she knows how to flirt actively and verbally, because though Vi does it a lot, and not just with Caitlyn, Caitlyn doesn't really do it. When she sits in the small room with the masked Saw Night woman a short while later, I don't see her as flirting. I see her as responding warmly and yet passively to the other woman, who is the active one doing the talking and leaning towards Caitlyn. Caitlyn is receiving the attentions completely at ease, even with a smile on her face, so the audience, as well as Vi, can deduce that she likes being flirted with by another woman. She is definitely open to advances from a woman, and this puts us on the path towards shipping Vi and Caitlyn together. But Caitlyn doesn't flirt back. The closest thing I see to her actively flirting is when she says,
"Shut up,"
with laughter in her voice, as a response to Vi's flirting. But again, I think her comeback here just comes naturally and intuitively, without thought or experience. So though I don't think Caitlyn is smitten at all by Vi at this point, Vi's direct words and the pinning against the wall, thereby showing her own preferences, absolutely gets Caitlyn's attention. It makes Caitlyn see Vi in a different light that she would have otherwise. And since her defenses are worn down by Vi's tour through the undercity, Vi leaves quite an impression here. And though it's not entirely positive, it's definitely different from what she's used to. One would think that this new way of regarding Vi would crumble when Vi ditches Caitlyn in the brothel, but it doesn't. For some reason, Caitlyn's natural intuition has pegged Vi as someone who is not only deserving of help, but is softer than it would seem from her abrasive manner so far. That, and the fact that Vi is still her best lead, makes her follow Vi and save her from Savika. And in this scene, Caitlyn keeps her cool. Now she is in her element. She has the control, the higher ground, the proper distance, and the trusted rifle, so she can disable her opponent swiftly and without risk. She is an excellent shot and proud of it. Quite the opposite of Vi's high-risk and messy fighting style. When Caitlyn comes up to Vi after saving her, she is standoffish, not running to help her, not offering support, nor asking whether Vi is alright. Through her reserved manner, she shows Vi that she is not happy with being left behind, and that she won't be blamed for Vi's mistakes. Vi has to be the one to take the next step. The least Vi could do was say thanks for saving her life, but Vi does no such thing. Yet. But Vi does adjust her opinion of Caitlyn in this moment, and from this point forward, Vi and Caitlyn are on a more equal footing. Vi sees that Caitlyn is neither too soft nor too cruel. She's not a pushover nor a bully, so she reaches out. And despite the veneer of humour, Caitlyn sees the honesty of Vi's words in this scene, the outstretched hand signifying not only that they are entering a partnership in finding Silco, but also that here is a person that needs help and Caitlyn can give it. Here is the purpose she's been waiting for. Someone who needs help and seems worthy of help, someone she can help. And furthermore, Vi is someone who shows an interest in Caitlyn personally, and not because of her job or family position. Vi takes Caitlyn seriously and yet also makes fun of her. So she can't help returning Vi's humorous flirtation with a coquettish retort and a laugh. Possibilities are appearing in the horizon. By the time Vi and Caitlyn get to Vi's childhood home, Caitlyn's view of the world has widened quite a lot, and here widens even further to the plight of the undercity and the fate of its people. We see this when she meets Huck. She is repulsed by his shimmer growths, but after hearing his story, she overcomes her own disgust and fear and gives a hug to someone who really needs it. This capacity for compassion and the physical expression of it is at the core of Caitlyn's character. She has great empathy and understanding, and she shows it through touch. That it does not have much of an effect on Huck's addiction is sad, but it doesn't really take away the generosity of her actions. It does, however, highlight the fact that Caitlyn's ideals and naive ideas about the world often fall short. Her mother's sheltering has definitely left her ignorant to the point where she's a misfit in all communities of the city. And yet, if only more topsiders and Zornites were more like Caitlyn, perhaps a change for the better could come about. The show being a tragedy, my guess is not. I think Caitlyn will worsen before Piltover and Zorn get better. Vi has thus pushed the boundaries of Caitlyn's experience, and now that Vi is dependent on her, the desire to help only grows. We see this very clearly when she gives up her beloved rifle as a trade for a potion she doesn't even know will work. Her rifle represents her professional pride and her personal prowess, but most importantly, it represents her agency and freedom. And she's willing to give that up? Wow! A single human life is much more important than her rifle, especially the life of this interesting woman who doesn't mollycoddle her but pushes her to do better. When Caitlyn gives Vi the potion and she uses her primary form of expression, touch, to try and calm her down, something unexpected happens. Vi was in need of a calming touch, and the tenderness of the thumb on the cheek worked wonders on Vi, calming her down, well, at least until they start glancing at each other's lips and spark starts to fly. It turns into a moment of attraction, a spark of interest that suddenly comes to the surface as they notice the close proximity to one another. It takes them both by surprise. So far, their banter has been superficial and easy, teasing each other, getting a feel for each other, but this is real physical attraction, genuine chemistry. Caitlyn pulls back, trying to regain control. What is it about Vi that makes her lose control? Caitlyn tries to cover by misdirection, talking of Sabika and Jinx, but she's not fooling anyone. Both Vi and we as an audience spotted that moment of attraction. But the misdirection does its purpose. It definitely works on Vi, who, soon enough, gets flashbacks to other enforcer experiences in her past. Vi is remarkably honest here, even going so far as using the facts of her past as a weapon against Caitlyn. Maybe Vi's trying to create some distance between them, scared of that spark of attraction earlier? The words have an impact. We can tell Caitlyn's devastation at Vi's view of enforcers, both in her face and in how she doesn't hear the commotion outside when Vi does. We see Caitlyn desperately trying to think of something to say that can help Vi process this unhappy memory of murderous enforcers. Caitlyn's bleeding heart is definitely getting involved in Vi's story. And again, we see how Caitlyn finds it difficult to express her own feelings verbally or talk about herself. It would have been a good moment to explain to Vi that she has never harmed anyone. After escaping Silco together, meeting Jinx, and being captured by the firelights, Vi and Caitlyn come to with masks over their faces and immediately start arguing. This is a sure sign of how deep their connection has become at this point. Caitlyn attacks Vi because she feels gullible in trusting her as much as she did, and the same goes for Vi. They have kept secrets from each other, but have despite this come to expect more from each other than from themselves. It's like an old married couple bickering, because as soon as an outside threat makes its appearance, all mutual animosity is gone in an instant. They weren't truly at odds, just superficially so. We also see this very clearly when Echo releases Caitlyn and she immediately tries to give herself up in favor of Vi, and Vi in turn vouch for Caitlyn to Echo. I think it's significant that we get such a long look at Caitlyn's face when Echo is talking. She's processing the array of feelings that have just run through her. First of all, she felt fear that Vi was being tortured. Then quickly she goes past relief to consternation that she was kept in the dark and that they were mocking her self-sacrifice. But then rapidly on to surprise at the fact that Vi not only trusts her, but told the leader of the group this fact openly. Caitlyn's head is spinning, and I think this is where she starts to realize some of her feelings for this woman. She doesn't look much at Echo as he talks. Her focus is on Vi, readjusting her view of her yet again. But it is not until they're on the bridge that I think she realizes how deep her feelings really go. When Vi is saying that she needs to go after her sister, we see her raise her head slightly in realization that this might be the last time they see each other. The sadness that this provokes in her is obvious in her face and eyes. And Caitlyn reacts in the only way she knows how. She hugs Vi, trying to show her through touch how much she really cares. So far, we've seen that Vi is much better at expressing her feelings verbally, and this moment is no different. Her words tender and heartfelt, finally thanking Caitlyn. But Caitlyn cannot think of what to say. She holds on more tightly instead. When Vi holds her face, I think Caitlyn is bursting at the seams, trying desperately to come up with something to say, to express how she feels, so she can make sure they will meet again. But to no avail. All she can do is look at her, hoping her expression says it all. And when she walks away, her steps are heavy, her shoulders hunched, inadvertently moving her head towards looking back, deeply upset with the fact that she might never see Vi again. Fortunately, they are thrust together again by Jinx's machinations, and we see how much Caitlyn cares when she, without a second thought, puts Vi's life before her own and tries to shield her from Jinx's bullets. I really love how this microsecond shows the ironic difference between Vi and Caitlyn. Vi protects those she loves by pushing them away, while Caitlyn draws her closer, willing to take the hurt upon herself and share the pain. So far, all Jinx's efforts to separate Vi and Caitlyn have had the opposite effect. They are rapidly getting closer and more attached to each other. When they make it back safely to Caitlyn's bedroom, we see how comfortable they are in each other's company. Vi, being the talker, starts to talk about what her heart is full of at the moment: powder. And Caitlyn stays silent, supporting Vi by listening without prejudice, mirroring Vi's movements and settling into a fetal position on the bed as if to take a nap. She's content with just being here with Vi. Finally, this restless woman comes to a standstill. For the first time in a long time, there's no need for her to be anywhere else, go anywhere else, solve anything else, at least for a while until the council meeting. Her purpose right now is to be here for Vi. And she responds to Vi's openness the only way she really knows how, with a touch. But the touch is unlike how she touched Vi in the undercity. Here, it is feather-light and intentionally intimate. She wants to ease Vi's suffering, comfort her, and show her that she cares. Also, I don't think Caitlyn can help herself at this point. She wants to and needs to touch Vi. And Vi catches this genuine touch of affection. It's beautiful. So Caitlyn falls in love with Vi because she's unlike anyone she has ever met, because she's a person in need of help who actually accepts Caitlyn's help and who helps her in return. Caitlyn's feelings grow out of her empathy and big heart into something more as the trust between them grows. Vi doesn't pander to Caitlyn or treat her as an entitled person, and this puts them on an equal footing despite their differences. Caitlyn recognizes in Vi some of the same drive and principles she herself has. There is definite chemistry between them, but I actually don't think that Caitlyn falls for her because Vi is a woman, badass, and hot, though these aspects sure don't make it harder to. I think it's got more to do with the fact that Vi has also got a big heart and opens up to her trustingly. Vi makes Caitlyn feel like she belongs and that she's appreciated for herself. All in all, Caitlyn is a straight-laced, honest, and yet guarded character. She focuses on making something of herself, on doing her job, and on finding the truth. So making friends isn't a priority, nor is it easy for her to let someone in. I sort of see her as a tall, silent protector in some way. Definitely seems like a role she takes on with Vi. But right away you might object, because Caitlyn isn't silent at all. She talks quite a lot. But her words are mostly not about herself. She doesn't express her feelings verbally, but physically instead. We see her tactile approach with her father, Jace, the unfortunate shimmer addict, Huck, and of course Vi. She even touches the tattooed man. Touch is definitely a major way for Caitlyn to communicate. The way she approaches the tattooed man is actually the same way she approaches Vi, with a handkerchief and the words easy, easy. A routine she does to calm people down, and it works. Her touch does wonders. She doesn't touch her colleagues, her boss, or her mother, which supports the idea that touch is a way for her to establish not only communication, but connection. And the connection is definitely established with Vi. Electricity. But as I said, Caitlyn isn't completely the silent type. She's not introvert or ineloquent. She talks a lot, but she's asking questions, explaining points, showing her sympathy for someone else's troubles, and making observations. What she doesn't talk about much is herself and her own feelings. From what I've been able to dig out, she talks about herself 4 times during season 1, and all of them rather short.
So why are you out here?
I'm a misfit too, I suppose.
That's a ceremonial position. I'd live behind a desk.
You almost died.
Excuse me? I will not.
You know what your problem? Oil and water, that's all there is.
What about us?
The 2 first comments are told to Jace. He seems to be the only one she really opens up to. Her words are about how she sees herself, her identity. The first is very revealing, saying how she feels misplaced and doesn't belong in the community and even in the family that she was born into. But it gives her a common ground with Jace, cementing their relationship for years to come. So the second comment shows her annoyance with the fact that she and Jace are no longer on the same page. She's not a bureaucrat. She's not meant for desk duty. She's a physically active, hands-on kind of person, not afraid to go out and get herself dirty. She wants to see the real world. The third statement reveals that even though she's adventurous and willing to put on a disguise in order to investigate something, she is still her mother's daughter. Her upper-class upbringing and morals show in that there are some things she will not stoop to. She can get her hands dirty, but her body is off limits as a sleuthing tool. She prefers her rifle. These first 3 statements are about identity, her moral code, and her position in life. They are not about her own feelings, her failures, her doubts, her private dreams and desires. She keeps those to herself. Other characters such as Jace, Silco, and Jinx talk a lot more about themselves, their feelings, and desires. Vi actually opens up a lot to Caitlyn during their time together, and it's not just because she wants to enlighten Caitlyn about how the other half lives, though it starts out that way. In the bed scene, Vi lets herself be extremely vulnerable with Caitlyn, showing the depth of her feelings. But Vi's sharing doesn't make Caitlyn share her own feelings and background story. She still sticks to physical contact. So when she says the infamous words,
What about us?
it is a monumentous thing for her to say. Finally, the words she's been struggling to voice pop out, almost as if she can't stop herself at this point. Never before has she let herself be vulnerable like this, showing her private desires, revealing her feelings for someone else so blatantly. It is so out of character, so revealing, and they haven't even had the talk yet. But Vi is that important to Caitlyn, and you can tell that she really wants to touch Vi, but Vi deliberately keeps a distance between them, so she has to say something. Caitlyn is saying that there is an us that has nothing to do with the struggle between Piltover and Sorn, nothing to do with Silco, and nothing to do with Jinx. She is expressing a feeling of mutual affection and attraction, a feeling of belonging that makes them a unit and not separate. Caitlyn bravely voices the fact that she feels a connection between them and wants it. Caitlyn feels that this bond they have should convince Vi to stay, and when it doesn't, it hurts. A lot. Even though Caitlyn guesses that Vi is intentionally keeping a distance between them, she still feels the rejection, because that is what it is. Vi even puts up a wall of class difference between them, resorting to using the nickname Cupcake in a derogatory way like in the beginning. Ouch. This moment of personal vulnerability and hurt has quite an effect on Caitlyn, and we see the storm of emotions it evokes in her in the shower scene later in the episode. I really hope she can find the words at some point to have a serious conversation with Vi about the making of choices and making them together. Caitlyn needs to open up to Vi, otherwise I fear Vi will maintain this distance between them. And this clip from the documentary behind Arcane of what looks like a new scene from Season 2 seems to reveal some bad news. Caitlyn and her father are alone, surrounded by white flowers and reading what appear to be condolence cards. The father looks distraught and underdressed, Caitlyn trying to comfort him. So yes, everything points to Vi's sister killing Caitlyn's mother. Which means that there will be some tough conversations in the future where Caitlyn will have to speak up for herself. Fingers crossed. Oh, and having said this, I fully believe that we will get a kiss in Season 2. Okay, that's all folks. I think I've spent enough time on Caitlyn now. And I even managed not to moon over her pretty and expressive eyes once. Ah shoot, at least until now. Anyway, I hope you liked the video, and if you did, please give me a like and a subscribe. If you're interested in further discussion about Arcane, Caitlyn and her relationship to Vi, either have a look at my other videos or leave a comment and I'll get back to you. Bye!